Crystal Murray is joining us. Crystal, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. Thank you for joining us. Crystal, why don't you give us a little bit of your background about how you got into racing and, what brought you on to Miles on Motorsports?
So I'm actually a third-generation racer following my dad and my grandfather, who both happened to run at Seekonk, amongst other places. My grandpa won a championship back in Seekonk back in the 80s, but by the time I came around, both of them had almost retired. Well, my grandfather obviously retired, but my dad, I still have memories of pro stock racing. But by the time I actually do have real memories, was he was racing go-karts as like a little hobby, and apparently I asked him if I could race, and he put me in a go-kart, and then I haven't been out of a seat since. I've been in a go-kart and a mini cup and in a Sport 4 since, and it's been a grand old time. But I started racing go-karts back when I was about 10, so maybe 2011 or so. I raced over in Tiverton at Seekonk Speedway, which is now closed, and I raced at the Woodstock Fair, which is also now closed. And then I hopped into a mini cup back in around 2015 or so, and I raced up at 106 Race Park, which is also now closed, up in Pembroke, New Hampshire. I raced with a really great group of guys up there. They were a little surprised when they had a 16-year-old girl competing with all these old guys, and it was a really good time, though. And then we did a little bit of traveling with that division as well. We went to Hudson and White Mountain, and then I was able to win at both of those, so that was a really good time. And then I hopped in my Sport 4 back in about 2018, where my brother and I actually split the season because we had one car and we had two drivers, so my brother Richie drove about half the season, and I drove the other half, both of us picking up wins, and my brother actually picking up the Rookie of the Year that year, and then going on to win a championship and going on to other divisions as well. But yeah, and then I also raced at Star. I won a race over there. That was a lot of fun too.
Well, it sounds like you're a local girl and you like to race on the local tracks. So I'm gonna guess you've had a run-in with our co-host here, Paul, at some point or another. Paul, you got any questions for Crystal?
Yeah, I'm gonna build something up, but I'm gonna tell you a little story, Crystal. So last Friday night I was sitting in Seekonk, right? And I'm one section away from you. I'm right next to you. And you go out there and you win that race in phenomenal fashion. Unbelievable win, right? Your grandmother stands up and she just looks at some strange guy, right? And she goes, "That's my granddaughter." And then she just walks down to go to Victory Lane. And I was like, wow. I was like, because that guy was cheering for one of the other guys. I think he was cheering for the guy who finished third. And she just laid him out. It was just like, "That's my granddaughter," and just went right down the Victory Lane. And I was just laughing because there's a big crew with you.
But yeah, I have a real big fan crowd. They're fantastic and rather loud. They're awesome.
So the one question I want to build up for you though. So you're in the points lead right now. You won the championship last year. You're in that race last weekend that you won. You're not going to win that race unless that yellow comes out, because that 47 car was going to win the race, and he was fast. And then that yellow comes out. You're on the outside, right? And you're coming down the backstretch. Lights are off. We're going green. What's going through your head? Because that was a phenomenal way to win the race on the outside. And my mind's still blown. But what were you telling yourself to get psyched up?
Pretty much the only other thing that you tell yourself, just try to win. Try to win, I guess. Try to get the best line, the best groove. But ironically, the only two races I've won this season are the ones I've won from the outside, so I can't say it was out of the blue or anything, but sometimes the outside restarts are go my way, and then other times they don't, and I was lucky to have that one go my way that night, and it was a really good time.
Yeah, I mean, he almost looked unbeatable early on. I mean, I'm sure you thought that, and then, like I said, what confidence on the outside, especially at that place.
Yeah, I mean, since they've repaved, the outside has a little extra kick to it, but yeah, it's really with the Sport 4 is just trying to get all that momentum as much as you can, and the outside can try to help with that if you can try to pitch the lower guy down, but sometimes it works out on the inside. It's just roll of the dice sometimes.
Yep.
Well, Crystal, this is Jim. I just listening to you speak about your career and yourself. The enthusiasm. We've got a lot of smiles going around this room. I'm just amazed in your young life so far of all the places that you've raced at. Do you have a favorite track that you race at, or what?
Favorite track, I would have to say, would have been 106 Race Park with my Mini Cup. It was about a 8-mile track, so about a half-size track, and then I was in about a half-size car. It was a really, really good groove, close racing, really good group of guys. We all ran each other fantastic. They were a big part in me turning laps and learning how to race close with everybody on top of Quick Speedway. But it was a perfect little bank track, and it was probably my favorite one I've had so far.
That's awesome. The other thing I always like when I talk to a driver, and you kind of touched on this, is your family. You started. It's something you can do with your dad. It's the memories. Working on that car together, getting to the track together, maybe coming home and stopping somewhere. But boy, your grandmother sounds like, when I'm at Seekonk, I'd like to meet her.
It's a huge
she sounds
group.
like she's awesome.
It's not one or two. It's like 10, 15 strong. I mean, like,
oh yeah, she's got the clans there.
And then
huh?
after the race, she's sitting there with them, and they're all surrounded her. I wanted to come over and ask her to come on the interview just then.
Yeah.
But like they were surrounding her, like it was like bodyguards. I was like, I didn't know what was going on.
You got to love your grandmother, right? I mean, that's awesome. I mean, if anybody says like a bad word about you in the stands, I don't think I want to be
Don't
them.
mess with that team.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I don't think you want to mess with that that group of people. It sounds like an entourage.
Yeah, I'll tell you. I mean, I wish you the best in your career. I mean, just from hearing you speak about yourself, you can tell. You got a great personality. You're very outgoing. You're not shy. You should do fine. It's obviously you can drive. I mean, Paul talks very well about you, and you can pass and win on the outside. As Darrell Waltrip always said, it's easier to pass with 8 wheels than 4. So when you get it done on the outside, you can drive. So I wish you a lot of success. I'm going to be looking for you my next time down at Seekonk, and wish you well.
I'll tell you guys another thing that. I mean, I don't want to say I'm a big fan because I race myself.
Sure.
I'm my own fan, right?
Sure,
but
right.
I'm kind of a fan of watching her. And one of the things I remember, I was there for her first win.
Yeah.
Because I go Friday nights. I bring my kid. You know what I mean? It's cheap, right?
It's a great
It's a great time for Friday night, right?
Yep.
So I was there for the first win. That was pretty cool. And then you kind of start watching her. And then the next thing you know, she's in college, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she's leaving college to go racing.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what she said. She won, and she's like, "Oh, I got to go back to school tomorrow," or whatever she said. And I was just like, "Wow!" I mean, like, what dedication to the sport?
Well,
you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Chocolate Myers always likes to talk about this about race car drivers. To be successful, you can have money and all that stuff, but if you don't have that dedication, determination, desire, if you're missing one of those 3, you're really not going to go anywhere. And even when you have all those 3, it's tough enough to succeed because when you're going against all that,
Crystal, I'm sorry, like I'm speaking for you, but it's always a good attitude portrayed from her. I don't know her from
me neither. I'm just getting
a great
to know her
attitude
from
comes off.
From what we're listening to her speak now, and it's like, boy, how can you not be a fan of her? And you've got a great personality, and the thing I really like is, you're third generation, so obviously you do a lot with the family, and that's like me and Paul again, we were talking last week after the show outside about how our interest started in racing, with your dads, and a lot of my fondest memories. I'm still fortunate to have my dad around, and so is Paul. Is sometimes just hanging out and watching the races and things like that. So I wish you the very best. I'm going to be looking for you.
So, Crystal, I have 2 quick questions for you before we wrap this interview up. Every time we have one of these younger drivers on and I'm on the show, I like to ask about the life racing balance. So, Paul mentioned that you're in college. How do you balance the going to school and taking classes and doing the homework and everything else? It's probably a little easier for you because you're in college, but when I have these high school kids on, I always ask this question about how do you manage to balance all of those responsibilities and still go to race every week?
So I actually did just graduate from college this past spring, but when I was in college, I would get a ride when I wasn't allowed to have a car at school. I would get a ride back, and I'd come race. Or if I had to go, one of the seasons, I think it was 2021. I was leading the points that year, and then I had to go away across the country for something for school. and then I pretty much just ended the season. So I guess it really didn't balance. But it was worth it. So it's pretty much, and then the following year we ended up being able to actually get the championship, and that was a real win. We were able to lead the point season and do the funky playoff championship that Seekonk does. So it was a real win. And I mean, we really couldn't have done it without like my dad. My dad is the reason that both me and my brother have had so much fun and success in our career at racing, from go-karts to now my brother's in a late model. Like over the years, the countless hours in the garage, the advice on and off the track, like he is the reason that we were able to do this. And then in the winter we go snowmobiling, and then that's pretty much the cycle.
That is so cool.
But yeah.
And then any sponsors or anyone that you want to shout out as we close out the interview here? Yeah,
of course. I mean, I already mentioned it, my dad, but all of our sponsors, Beth and Mike from B&M Maintenance, they've been with me since season 1 of my Sport 4 division. Helger South Coast Power Equipment, Alan from Truck and Auto Parts, Jim Hawkins, Uncle Benham, Susan Media, and then everybody, as you guys mentioned, I do have a very large fan crowd. Everybody who comes and supports every week, they're always there to support me, and I really appreciate it. But everybody back in the pits, my grandpa, my brother Richie, my friend Matt, AJ, who's pretty much everything, and he's been my teammate in the Sport 4 divisions before he retired, and is now an awesome dad. But my mom and my grandma and my very loud fan club. But it's a lot of fun, and thank you guys all so much, and thank you very much for having me on today.
Well, thank you for joining us, Crystal, and we will definitely be keeping an eye out for you down in Seekonk.
Thank you.
Good luck with the chase.
Good luck. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Very welcome.